Well, another study through Luke's Gospel as we prepare for Easter Sunday. Luke chapter 22, beginning in verse 47. While he was still speaking, this is Jesus, there came a crowd, and the man called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He drew near to Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said to him, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? And when those who were around him saw what would follow, they said, Lord, shall we strike with the sword? And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, no more of this. And he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priest and the officers of the temple and elders who had come out against him, have you come out against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. I think one thing I just want to say is, as Jesus was there with his disciples, it says that he was approached by Judas, who was leading this crowd against him, one of the 12. This Judas was a good friend of Jesus. He lived with Jesus for 3 years. He ate with him. He slept next to him in the open field. They shared laughter and community together, and then he betrayed him. I know that some of you who are listening to this have been betrayed by those closest to you. Not only been betrayed personally, but maybe that person has led others against you, have lied against you, have gossiped against you, and Jesus Christ is no different. Those 12, one of them, one of his closest friends, turned against him and led others to him. It says, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? One thing I would say is that we need to remember that we all have been like Judas. We all have betrayed Jesus. We all have turned against him. Every time we sin against God, every time we do things our way and not God's way, we are ultimately choosing ourselves and sin and the evil one and darkness over Jesus Christ. So in one sense, we can feel the pain that Jesus feels in terms of his betrayal by Judas. In a very other sense, we can experience Judas's betrayal, because we've all been there as betraying Jesus. The story goes on, and Peter stepped forward and sliced off one of the guard's ears. Jesus said no more of this, and he took the ear and he restored it for this man. You can imagine what this man felt. His ear was off and bleeding, and all of a sudden it was back on. He got a picture and a window into the miraculous healing power of the Lord Jesus Christ. And Peter, like always, stepped forward, did not want his master, his Lord, to be crucified. Back in earlier in the Gospels, Jesus told his disciples that he would have to suffer and die. And Peter stepped forward and said, no, my Lord, this will never happen. And Jesus said to him, get behind me, Satan. You have in mind the things of man, not the things of God. Peter was still there. He didn't fully understand. And then Jesus accused these robbers, or these chief priests and elders and scribes. Listen, I've been in the temple all day long preaching and teaching, and you didn't come after me. But you came in the power of darkness because you knew this was wrong. This is your hour, the power of darkness. When we move closer and closer to Good Friday, what we see is that pain and death and darkness is coming. And we can't get to Easter Sunday morning and the power of the resurrection and the light that it brings until we first see the power of darkness. So we can look at the power of darkness in Jesus' betrayal, but we must look at the power of darkness in our own soul, how we maybe have turned against God ourselves. So I pray that you would become aware of your sin, that you would think much about how you have wronged God, and how even in your sin, Jesus, the Lord of glory, was still going to the cross. So maybe a question for you to consider, maybe two on Judas. One, have you ever been betrayed like Jesus by a Judas? And maybe number two, when have you felt like a Judas? And lastly, are there certain sins in your life that you must confess? Are there certain sins in your life that you need to confess to God and one another?